Arthur Pendergast was a man defined by the rhythm of a mop bucket and the silence of empty hallways. He spent 40 years scrubbing the linoleum floors of St. Jude's primary school, living in a cramped basement apartment that smelled of industrial floor wax and old paper. Most people saw a man who existed only to clear away their messes, but in 1994, Arthur saw something that would change the trajectory of his quiet, solitary life forever. It was a rainy Tuesday in November when the local authorities arrived at the school. A tragic car accident had claimed the lives of the Miller family, leaving behind three young children with nowhere to go. There was 10-year-old Elias, 8-year-old Sarah, and 6-year-old Toby. As the social workers debated the logistics of foster care, Arthur stood by the radiator, his hands calloused and trembling. He didn't have a retirement fund. He didn't have a spare bedroom. What he did have was an unshakable sense of duty and a heart that felt far too big for his fraying uniform. Arthur made a decision that shocked the town. He petitioned the court for legal guardianship, pulling from his meager savings to bring the three siblings into his one-bedroom basement dwelling. His salary as a janitor was barely $900 a month. He worked double shifts, sometimes cleaning the school by day and a nearby office building by night. He slept on a recliner so the children could share his only bed. He wore the same pair of boots for 6 years, patching the soles with duct tape just so he could afford textbooks and winter coats for his adopted family. Life was not easy. The children were grieving, traumatized by the loss of their parents. They fought, they cried, and they tested Arthur's patience at every turn. Yet Arthur never raised his voice. He taught them that dignity was not found in a bank account or a title, but in the sweat of one's brow and the integrity of one's actions. He kept the school's lost and found bin to find clothes that fit. He scavenged discarded library books to ensure they had a library of their own. He was a father in every way that mattered, even if the world saw him as nothing more than a man with a broom. Fast forward 20 years to the spring of 2014. The basement apartment was empty, and the school where Arthur had worked was scheduled for demolition. But the legacy he planted in those three orphans had finally come to full bloom. The town newspaper reported on a gathering that left the community in stunned silence. A sleek black sedan pulled up to the site of the old school, now a fenced-off construction zone. Out stepped three adults, impeccably dressed and visibly moved. Elias, once the quiet, angry 10-year-old boy, was now a lead surgeon at the State Trauma Center. He had dedicated his career to emergency medicine, driven by the memory of the night his own parents were taken. Sarah, the little girl who used to cry herself to sleep, had become a brilliant civil rights attorney, focusing her life on the legal protections of children in the foster system. And Toby, the youngest, had followed in the footsteps of the only man who had ever truly loved them. He was not a janitor, but he was a director of facility management for a major university, overseeing the infrastructure that allowed thousands of children to learn. They hadn't come back to visit the school. They had come back to honor the man who had traded his youth and his comfort to ensure they didn't just survive, but thrived. In a small park nearby, they unveiled a permanent memorial plaque. It didn't mention the school's history or the names of any donors. It bore only the image of a man holding a broom, with the inscription, "To Arthur Pendergast, who taught us that the greatest measure of a man is not what he gains, but what he gives away." The transformation was not just professional, it was deeply personal. When Elias performed his first successful life-saving surgery, he didn't call his colleagues, he called Arthur. When Sarah won her first major trial, she didn't celebrate with a party. She bought Arthur a house, not in the basement, but on a street where the sun touched the windows every single morning. She replaced the duct-taped boots with comfort and the industrial wax smell with the scent of fresh flowers. Arthur passed away peacefully in 2018, surrounded by grandchildren who knew him not as a janitor, but as a hero. The story of the Miller children is often cited by social historians as a testament to the power of human intervention. It proves that destiny is not a fixed point decided by tragedy, but a landscape that can be reshaped by the selfless actions of a single individual. The investment Arthur made in 1994 returned a profit that couldn't be measured in currency. It was measured in saved lives, successful careers, and an unbroken chain of kindness that continues to ripple through their community. We are taught to look for heroes in the pages of history books, or on the screens of our televisions, or in the halls of power. We are taught to look for grandeur, for spectacle, and for status. But the story of Arthur Pendergast reminds us that the most profound change often happens in the margins of society. It happens in the quiet, uncelebrated spaces where someone decides that another person's life is worth more than their own comfort. 20 years later, the impact of his sacrifice is still being felt. Every patient Elias treats, every child Sarah defends, and every student who walks through the doors under Toby's care is a testament to the janitor who chose to be a father. He did not leave behind a fortune, a business empire, or a political legacy. He left behind something far more durable, a generation of humans who learned through his example how to be good. As we move through our own lives, navigating the pressures of ambition and the noise of a world obsessed with outward success, we should ask ourselves what we are actually building. Are we focused on the accumulation of things that will fade, or are we investing in the people who will carry our values into the future? Arthur Pendergast was a man who owned almost nothing, yet he gave everything he had to ensure his children became everything they could be. Perhaps the most important question is not how much we leave behind when we go, but who we leave behind to carry our light. In the end, we are all just janitors, cleaning up the mess of the world and leaving it a little cleaner, a little brighter, and a little more hopeful for those who follow in our footsteps. The question is not what you will be remembered for, but who will remember you as the reason they were able to become who they are today.